In June 2020, Germany's most celebrated tech company collapsed in 7 days. Here is the strange part. It was a payments company on the DAX, at its peak worth more than Deutsche Bank, and almost no one in Germany could say what it actually sold. That's because the product you could see, card machines, travel payments, lost money for years. The product that made the profits was somewhere else, in a spreadsheet, in Manila, behind a signature. Every fraud is a clock, and this one had been dead since at least 2015. Prosecutors say the fake revenue started then. This is the payments giant whose own auditors kept signing off on cash that was never there. By the end, the whole was 1.9 billion euros, and the paperwork holding it up came down to 13 letters. The company that didn't borrow validation, it bought it wholesale, and the people paid to check signed. Wirecard started in 1999, processing payments for the two businesses that always pay their bills, pornography and gambling. In 2005, it slipped onto the Frankfurt Stock Exchange through the back door, a reverse merger with a dormant listed shell, skipping the scrutiny of a real listing. By September 2018, it was worth 24 billion euros, and it took Commerzbank's seat in the DAX 30, a national champion. But inside there were two companies sharing one ticker. The real one processed payments for airlines and tour operators, TUI, KLM, and by the insolvency administrator's account lost money for years. The imaginary one lived in Asia, 3 outside partners, supposedly processing payments where Wirecard had no licenses. Here is what the special audit later found. Those 3 partners produced roughly half of all reported revenue, and in the administrator's words in court, 98% of the operating profit. The cash that actually arrived from them over 3 years, 85 million euros. The company burned through more than €1 billion of real money, by the administrator's count, spending as if the imaginary profits were real. That is the engine of this entire story. A loss-making business wearing a profitable costume, paying real bills with borrowed cash. So how does a loss-making company survive 5 years on the stock exchange as a profit machine? You don't forge the money, you forge the proof that someone checked the money. The imaginary profits supposedly piled up in escrow accounts, first in Singapore, then in the Philippines. The auditors at EY needed confirmation those accounts were real. Year after year, the confirmation came from the trustee who managed the accounts. Between 2016 and 2018, one man in Singapore signed 13 balance confirmation letters, swearing to more than 1.1 billion euros that did not exist. The letters went straight to the auditors. What the auditors did not do for 3 consecutive years was call the bank. The bank in question, OCBC, later confirmed 2 things. It never held the accounts and EY never asked. Germany's audit watchdog would eventually call the work grossly negligent. Its sanction: a €500,000 fine and a 2-year pause on new listed clients. Inside EY, someone almost caught it. A 2016 internal probe, Project Ring, came close to the fraud and was shut down. The Irish Times reported it years later. When an outside auditor, KPMG, was finally sent in with permission to look anywhere, it could not verify the Asian revenue at all. Because the documents sat with outside partners who declined to hand them over, an obstacle KPMG put on the record. The signature machine had one rule: never let the checker leave the room built for them. Then someone outside the room found the door. A lawyer at Wirecard's own Asia office, Pav Gill, had run an internal investigation called Project Tiger. Fake contracts, invented numbers, money moving in circles. When he pushed, he was pushed out. His mother, without telling him, wrote to journalists under a false name. The trail ended at the Financial Times, and in January 2019, reporter Dan McCrum published what the documents showed. Germany's financial regulator received Wirecard's own internal fraud report that same January. Then it did 2 things. It banned short selling of Wirecard shares, a first for a single DAX company, and it filed a criminal complaint against the journalists. The investigation of the reporters ran 17 months. The only police raid on Wirecard's offices that year came from Singapore, not Germany. Inside the regulator, the trades tell their own story. As the crisis deepened, Wirecard-related deals grew to 2.4% of everything the regulator's own staff traded. In the first half of 2020, most of their Wirecard derivative trades were purchases, not sales. and one employee sold Wirecard-linked products on June 17. The day before the company disclosed the money was missing, the complaint this time was filed by the regulator against its own employee. The short ban stood. Around 50,000 shareholders would eventually file claims against what was left. We'll come back to what they got. What finally stopped the clock? The question no one had put to a bank in years. In mid-June 2020, with the annual accounts due, the auditors at last asked the Philippine banks directly about the $1.9 billion. The bank's answer took days, not years. The documents were, in their word, spurious. June 18, EY refuses to sign, and January Marsalek, the executive who ran the Asian business, is removed and flies out of Austria that night. June 19, the CEO resigns. June 22, the company admits the money most likely does not exist. The Philippine Central Bank adds the epitaph, none of it ever entered the country's financial system. June 25, insolvency, 21 years to build, 7 days to fall, and the clock had stopped 5 years earlier. Then the aftermath. The trustee who signed the 13 letters, 10 years in a Singapore prison, sentenced this January. The man who instigated them, 6.5. The fugitive Marsalek, traced by Bellingcat and the insider to Moscow, named in a London court as the figure behind a convicted Russian espionage ring. And from Russia, he sent the Munich court a letter through his lawyers insisting the Asian business was real. Then the CEO, Marcus Braun, has been in pre-trial detention for more than 5 years. His trial has run over 260 sessions, more than 3 years, with no verdict. He denies everything and says he was deceived too. As of this video, the law has reached the people who typed the proof, and not yet the chief executive of the company it was typed for. Whatever the court decides, that asymmetry is already the record. The bill, as always, arrived at the bottom. Claims against the estate, 15.4 billion euros. The estate, about 650 million. Germany's highest civil court ruled last November that shareholders stand at the back of that line. For 50,000 of them, the math rounds to zero. The auditor's regulator fined EY €500,000. The insolvency administrator is suing them for 1.5 billion. That case is still open. Germany rewrote its audit laws. The watchdog got direct investigative powers. Auditors got rotation rules, and a liability cap raised fourfold. Wirecard never sold the future. It sold something better, the signature that says someone checked. 13 letters, 3 years of unasked questions, one regulator aiming at the messenger. That was the whole machine. The product was the proof. Next, the cryptocurrency that raised billions on a revolution it never built. Investigators found no blockchain at all. The clock, as always, was already running.